اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Bismillah. So today we're going to talk about something that unfortunately Abdul Majid isn't here. It's his favorite topic. But it's just a useful thing to talk about, which is not talking about jihad, but talking about Islamic history, right? Islamic history. So all of us, or basically all of us, we come from countries that are Muslim countries, right? You're from Afghanistan, right? Pakistan, Muslim country. Pakistan. Afghanistan. Afghanistan. Wait, Pakistan. Afghanistan, right? Mongols. There we go. So we'll talk about those guys in a second, right? Right? Masri, right? Masri? Afghanistan. Masri, right?
Yeah, Afghanistan.
Misr, right? Half. Okay, 50-50. Okay. So how did so who knows how did Islam come to Egypt, for example? Somebody know?
And then he forgot his name though.
Amr ibn
by his character and the way he acted, business and stuff.
Okay, but but so when they first came, they just walked into the country like, hi guys, assalamu alaikum.
It took time.
Fine. For people to become Muslim, it took time, but what did they do when they came into the country? Who knows? Yeah, but the Muslims, they didn't just come and say hello to people. They conquered the country, right? They conquered the country through jihad, right? So they conquered Egypt, right? So they conquered first Jordan, Palestine, Syria, and then they went east towards Egypt, and then they went to Libya, and then these countries went there, but it was called Ifriqiya back in those days, North Africa. And then they went all the way to Morocco, and then like, mashallah, we reached the end of the world, right? You reached the Atlantic. So where did they go? They went to Spain, right? So the question is, and then what about Afghanistan? Same thing. The Sahaba, they went to Iraq, they conquered Iraq from the Persians, and then they went into Iran, they conquered Iran from the Persians, and then they went into Afghanistan, and then they went to Sindh, the borders of Pakistan and India at that time, and they stopped there. They couldn't get any further. So the question is, they weren't trying to convert everybody because they didn't force people to become Muslim, right? So, for example, to this day, you go to Iran, I don't know, maybe in Afghanistan, you have people who still are Zoroastrians, right? To this day in Iran, you see people that they're not Muslims. They've been Zoroastrian since before Islam, right? In Egypt, you have Christians that have been there since way before Islam, right? In Yemen, who knows what religious minority exists in Yemen? Jews. There's Yemeni Jews, like tons of them. They're like a significant part of still there. Significant part of the community. They've been there since way before. And in the Seerah, we read as well, how did Yemen become Jewish? That was way before Islam, right? And so, what else? And so, all of these places, they became Muslim through da'wah, but they originally were conquered, right? They were conquered, and then the Mongols came, right? The Mongols came, and the Muslims, they had to defend themselves against the Mongols, because the Mongols, do you know what percent of the world the Mongols wiped out? Like if I had, let's say all the whole world is 10 people, how many of those 10 people were killed?
9. 7.
No, it's not that much.
5.
The whole world is just 10 people.
Yeah. 6.
No, they killed 1/5 of the world's population. 1/5 of the world's population, and most of those people were Muslims. They went to the key cities in Central Asia, all these big places, huge. Mara was the biggest city on the face of the earth for 100. They went in there, and they said, "Guys, come out or we'll kill you." So the guy said, "Okay, we'll come out." And they killed them anyway. They just butchered. They killed 1/5 of the world population, right? Until the Muslims finally stopped them coming out of Egypt. So there they were fighting. They were defending themselves against what? Like elimination, basically. You're fighting for your life. But why did the Muslims, for example, go into Jerusalem? Why did the Muslims try and go? What were they fighting for? Like, what were they fighting for? When the Prophet ﷺ conquered Mecca, what did he get out of conquering Mecca? Like, can any suggestions? For the haqq, what does that mean?
What did he get out of conquering Mecca? Righteousness.
Righteousness.
Okay. Goodness.
Okay. So specifically on a more material level, what does it mean? Like, what do they do on a material, physically? What do they do? Oh no, he loves me that much.
No. I was trying to send it to somebody.
The exit.
So bro, your ears are going red. So my ears go red. They don't stop. It's there the whole time. Just like ready. My ears go red, and then it's like then it's just like stays like that for like ever. So everyone's like, why are you still embarrassed? Like 2 hours later, I'm sorry. You know.
Oh no, I just think my head's warm.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm like that. Okay.
So the main thing is
So the Prophet then went in. What did he do to the idols?
he destroyed that.
Destroyed the idols. Okay. So that's what you mean by haqq, is like, okay, we want Islam to be true. Okay. And so they got rid of all the idols and said, no, but there's no more paganism in Mecca. They can't do that. Okay. When they went into Jordan, when they went into Palestine, went to Syria, did they kill all the Muslim Christians and say no one can be a Christian anymore?
No.
No. So what else did they do? In Egypt, same thing. So Egypt, you got to understand, Egypt is like, there's tons of Muslims in Egypt. There are a majority, but there wasn't a majority back then. The Christians were a majority, and the Muslims were a minority. Right? Same thing in Jordan, same thing in Palestine. Over time, through da'wah and example of living with Muslims, they became Muslim. Right? But they went in there. So what did they do? They established Islamic law. So that's what a country does, right? China takes over a country. So okay, there's a military. They take over an area. So who rules? Who's going to go to jail? Who's not going to go to jail? Initially, it's the police, and originally it's the army, and then there's police, etc. Right? And so we have to understand that whenever we think about jihad, it's like, okay, people are like dying, people are like sacrificing everything. What were they sacrificing everything for? Like, what did they put so much effort into achieve? Right? They put so much effort in order to establish Islamic law, right? To establish Islamic law, right? And so the question is, what else did they fight for? So one thing is Islamic law. What else did they fight for? So previously, let's say for example, Constantinople, right? That was a Christian country, right? Christian area. Now you go there, everyone's reciting Quran. So did they fight so that people would recite Quran?
No.
They didn't force them to do that, but that's one of the things that they fought for eventually, is that this place will be a Muslim country and there will be 5 daily prayers. So 5 daily prayers is a religio-political thing. Religio-political. Religious in that you pray 5 times a day. But it's also a political thing. Like you pray and it's like, this is a Muslim country. The adhan, oh, Muslim country. Right? And so what is it? It's izhar al-haq. Izhar al-haq. Making the truth known to everybody. So you go to that country, let's say a lot of the Ottoman countries, the majority Christian, but everyone knows that Islam is there and everyone knows what Islam is. So it's available for everybody, right? So one of the things they fought for was Islamic law, implementation of Islamic law. One of the things they did for was izhar al-haq, that the truth can be known. Because in many countries, particularly in Europe, you wouldn't be able to know about Islam anyway. You can't Google it. You can't Google, oh, what are Muslims? This is interesting. You don't have a choice whether you're going to be Protestant or Catholic, let alone. That you definitely don't have a choice to be Christian or to be Muslim. You don't have the ability to find out about Islam anyway. So they had to conquer these places because people don't even have the ability to go and find out about Islam. They didn't have the ability to do that. So when they went in there, did they kill everybody and say, everybody, you got to change religion? No. But here's Islam, by the way. It's very clear. So everybody now knows. If you want to become Muslim, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. Right? So they fought for what? Let's go through specifics. They fought for Islamic law. They fought so that in the future there would be lots of Muslims praying 5 times a day. There's an adhan. People recite Quran. Right? People recite Quran. So that means people spilt their blood. People risked their lives, right? In order that we can recite Quran. Right? Is that true? Okay, well, do we recite Quran? Right? So imagine Sa'ad risks his life to save this computer. The whole thing, he runs across the road, he does all these things, and at the end of the evening, he managed to save this computer, but I don't even use it. So he's such a hero, and he's like, well, he's a hero and he did this, but I don't even use the computer that he saved, right? So you think about all these heroes and all these things, and it was really hard, right? Do you know who one of the hardest people to fight? The hardest, the Afghans. Cities, they had to conquer 3 times. They would conquer, and then they rebel again, conquer again, conquer again. It's like, guys, hello, like, we've won. It's like, no. It was hard. It was difficult. People, it was very, very hard. It wasn't easy. It was very, very difficult. But they did it with intention, is that this one day these people are going to be guided, and then they will, right? And so, what else do we have? So establishing Sharia, the people recite Quran. What else? That the truth would be known. What else? Humanity, yes, so that's true. Sometimes, some of these places it was really bad, and so they went there. It was like, okay, you people are being abused. And so the people said, great, please come into our country because we're being abused by our rulers. And so we'll be very happy if new rulers come in, right? That happened, true. Anything else, guys?
For Constantinople was a prophecy. So people
That was to fulfill the prophecy, yeah? Right. So the Prophet was asked, which one will be conquered first? Will it be Rome or will it be Constantinople? And he said it would be Constantinople, right? So to fulfill that, right? And the Prophet mentioned that what a wonderful people those people are who conquer it, right? So that's true, okay? What else? So let's go through the details then. Islamic law. Right? So we've got to understand, our forefathers died, our forefathers gave their lives, right? In order for Islamic law to be established. What does that mean then? It means that the right, for example, to establish what? Can we give an example of the Islamic law?
Alcohol is forbidden.
Alcohol is forbidden, right? So let's think, thousands and thousands and thousands of people died fighting to forbid alcohol, and then we go and drink alcohol. Like, dude, you could have told me you were going to drink alcohol. I wouldn't have bothered. I would have just stayed home. Right? So they fought and they strove all these things to forbid alcohol. And the first thing we do is like, great, let's go and drink alcohol. Right? Like when I was in Jordan, all the golf guys from the Gulf and they come to Saudi, to come to Jordan to come and drink. It's fun, right? It's like it's what you do. It's like, well, what like, didn't people strive so that would not happen? Didn't they die? Didn't the Prophet ﷺ himself suffer so that wouldn't happen? Didn't the Sahaba finish one battle and then go to another battle even though they're already injured and strive with the hope that they could possibly stop people doing that, and then we go and do it? Right? It's ajib. And then, or worse than that, we have a right not to ban it, and then we go and say, actually, no, freedom of everyone should be free to do what they want. Right? In Pakistan, in Jordan, or whatever, it's like, I would let everybody, let's be liberal. Islam is liberal. It's like they fought so that wouldn't be the case. They fought to ban alcohol. We say no, for me, like, as long as you guys drink. No, it's wrong, right? So we got to understand what these people were sacrificing, what they're trying to do, right? They fought so that we could pray 5 times a day. They fought that there'd be an adhan. They fought that there would be a Quran. You could read the Quran, right? They fought that so that what else in the Sharia? No alcohol. What else in the Sharia? The sacred law. Stealing, right? They fought so that when someone steals and it's proven that they stole, they broke into someone's house or took something that was hidden or in a safe place, and they took it, that their hand gets cut off. And we're like, no, inhumane, haram. It's inhumane to do that. So, well, what were they trying to? They went through all of that for their kids to come along and say it's inhumane, right? That doesn't make sense. Right? The Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, the next generations has happened again and again and again. Right? India, right? All of that for what? Right? And so we put in our mind all of the things of the Sharia that we would be like, okay, I don't really care about personally. Like, I don't really care if someone's hand isn't cut off. Not a big deal if people drink. Not a big deal if, You say, what on earth did all these people strive for doing? What did they do? Right? What did they do? What they were burnt alive. You know, a beautiful story of, there's a little kid called Muhammad al-Saghir. I told you the story, right? The little Muhammad who grew up in Spain.
Yeah.
Right? I told you that story, right? So this is a story of a kid who grows up in Spain after the Christians are coming. So all the Protestants, all the Jews, all the Muslims, you're forced to be Catholic. If you're not Catholic, we'll roast you alive. So everybody has to become undercover Muslims, right? And so there's this story, and this kid who grows up. Basically, he grows up as a Christian, and his parents are Muslims, but they don't tell him, because if they tell him, he'll tell his friends at school, and they'll all be tortured to death, right? So what happens when he's 10? His dad finally tells him the secret, but he can't tell anybody, not even his mum. So his mum knows, but his mum doesn't know that he knows, and it's a whole secret, right? So they did everything just so that this boy could one day possibly escape Spain, the new Christian Spain, and get to a Muslim country and apply the deen. And alhamdulillah, he became a faqih, and he studied deen, and he became an author of many books, mashallah. So now we turn around, and there's this boy, Muhammad al-Saghir, who now drinks, now smokes, doesn't pray, doesn't fast, doesn't care about the Quran. And it's like, your parents went through all of that for this? It's like, you could have just stayed a Christian. What's the problem? Right? What was the point? Right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has with a tremendous deen. Heroes, people who went through amazing things. Every country, you can think about the Mujahideen in your country. Afghanistan, Mujahideen, what did they do? So like, what were you fighting against? Okay, in Afghanistan, we're fighting against Russians. What does that mean? We're fighting against. We don't want vodka to be drunk in our streets. Okay, well, let's go and buy it then. So, well, what was the point of that? All these people died. All these people went through hell to save your country from kufr, and you just go and put your hands around it. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? And so, what I'm trying to say is, we have to when we contextualize what happened in our past, the sacrifices, the difficulty, all these things, and what has been given to us on a plate. Right? What has been given to us on a plate. We have the deen, it's all there. The ulama preserved the hadith, they preserved the halal and haram, they solved all the problems for us. It's all there. They gave us an ability, they gave us all these things, and yet when we have those blessings, we're like, it's not a big deal. Right? It's not a big deal. They fought for us to be able to just so that people would know the sunnah, but we don't apply the sunnah, right? And so, having this in mind and understanding where these things come from, it helps us value these things and helps us put it in mind. And it was a very useful lesson I was taught. Is anybody here 14? Everyone's older than 14. I know, I was 14. It's 14. Right, so I was 14. I was in England. And Sheikh Muhammad Ya'qubi, does anyone know Sheikh Muhammad Ya'qubi? Anyway, so Sheikh Muhammad Ya'qubi, he's in Morocco now. I'm not sure where he is, in Morocco or is he in America, I'm not sure. But anyway, so he's a sheikh, and he came to England. He was giving a series of talks. So the talk that I attended when I was 14 is he told everybody, everybody go home. Everybody go home. You're from Afghanistan, go home. You're from Morocco, go home. You're from Algeria, go home. Egypt, whatever you're from, go home. He says, unless you're here giving da'wah, you have a very particular reason to be here. You are here in England, you are here in England with a very, very specific goal, which is, I'm here to spread the deen. That's why I'm here. But otherwise, what is so good about your country? What is so wonderful? Well, I've got good income, sane laws, no corruption. What else? Good finance, basically. Well, that's called dunya, right? So anybody who knows has been to Muslim countries, there's a lot of headaches. It's annoying. But at the end of the day, there's adhan, there's a this, there's a that, and in principle, we hope eventually these people will wake up and apply the Sharia, because some of the countries, some of them completely. Ultimately, we have to have it in our core that we don't love this system. We love the Islamic system. That's what the Prophet ﷺ gave us, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, he told us, he said, You are all like flies flying into a fire. So the fly loves the light. It just goes to the light. That's what it's programmed to do. So it flies into the fire, right? And I'm like a man who's next to that fire. And he's trying to get these flies away from the fire. It's not good for them. They're going to die, right? And here you are flying into that thing that I'm trying to protect you from, and I'm grabbing you by your very belts, right? Not grabbing you by your arm, your belt, right? That's the middle of the body, right? Ratib's a wrestler, right? You grab me by the arm. It's not the same when you grab me by the waist. You grab somebody by the very belt, and you're falling out of my hands. The Prophet ﷺ is showing that his inayah, his concern and worry for us. He's grabbing you by your very belt and falling out of my hand, right? And so we have to understand that we don't value. It's very nice being in this country. It's nice being, particularly for me. I'm from England, right? England rains all the time. It's like mashallah. It's like this. You call this winter? It's like mashallah. Like it's basically spring, and then it's going to be a nice summer, and then it's going to be another spring. It's like fantastic, right? We're in one of the wealthiest places in the world, right? We have so many opportunities here. There's so many good things that can happen to, such bright future on a material level. Such a bright future. It's nice. But this is not what the Prophet ﷺ fought, and what the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba and they didn't fight for this. Yeah, there are certain things here that they did fight for, right? That are achieved here, and they fought for as well. True, but this is not what we're here to do, right? We're not here to be here. We're here to be an alternative, right? So I'm not saying let's all raise arms and try and conquer San Francisco. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in our minds, you have to understand that these people went through so much for something else. Like, why did they even do that when we could just be here, just live like this, right? Why? What's the big deal? The big deal is that there's our khair, our good is in that, right? That's where the good is, and we have to understand the value of that thing, and whatever of that we can apply in our personal lives, right? There's no Sharia here. There's no Islamic law in the West. Fine. But we can at least learn it. We can at least learn Arabic. We can at least try and apply it in our own lives. We can at least respect it, revere it. We can at least, whatever of it that they did that was preserved for us and we can apply, we should, right? Whatever we can, right? So all of us are muqassirin. All of us are falling short without question, right? Not a single person has come after the Prophet ﷺ who's 100%er, right? And so minus 100%, right? May Allah forgive me. What I'm trying to say is that we just put in our mind all of these things. People suffered and died for us to be able to do certain things, for us to pray Taraweeh, for us to pray, to recite Quran, for us to be able to pray, for us to have a connection with Allah, for us to be able to find out about the halal and haram, for us to be able to try and apply it in our lives, right? And yet we don't really care because it's not a big deal. But if our own fathers, died for something, we'd value it, right? If he died for your life, he died for your education, right? He died so that you can get through a boat and survive. You'd really value your chance, right? And so it is our forefathers, they died for this, right? Our forefathers, they died for these things, right? And they died for Allah, and their ajr was with Allah. They're not coming up to us and saying, oh, I did it all for you. No, they did it for Allah. That's true. They got their reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's better than anything we can do. But we have to value that thing. We have to understand what was the whole big deal, right? It doesn't make sense when suddenly Sharia is given to us, we're like, we're not even interested. We don't even know what it is. We don't even care. Not even interested. And then if it's offered to us, we don't really care. We're not really interested. We don't want it. Right? And unfortunately, that's the case in many Muslim countries. They say, do you want Sharia? Like, no, we want something else. Okay, well, what was the point in that? Right? And so, practical things then, Quran, right? Quran, practical things, Arabic, practical things, getting a basic understanding of the deen, right? So if one of the basic things is what? Is that we cover, for example, mashallah, Siddiq, Allah will call him, better than Ratib. He had a very good suggestion, which is starting to read the Quran in English. So we're doing that on the Monday nights. This is really, really good, right? And that's a basic understanding of the deen. Read the whole Quran in English is a very, very good thing to do, right? But also learning Arabic so that we can have that connection, right? Think of yourself as Muhammad al-Saghir. What did he do in the night time? He comes back from the church in the daytime. At night, he's learning Quran and Arabic with his dad in a little hidden room that nobody knows about, right? That's how he was living. That great concern and he had that the deen has to continue, right? The deen has to continue. It has to keep going. So learning Arabic, learning Quran, okay? We don't have to read every single hadith in the world, right? But there's many books. Who can give an example of a book in English of hadith that we can read? What's it called, sorry? Shama' al-Tirmidhi, for example. That's in English, right? The Shama' al-Tirmidhi, which is a book on describing what the Prophet ﷺ was as in his character and in his body. So people, Sahaba, defended Islam. Islam exists today, and you can find out how high the Prophet ﷺ's arches were. Right? This is how accurate, how much detail we have about the Prophet ﷺ, how high his arches were. Right? So what are you going to do about how high his arches were? Nothing, but it just shows how well preserved the deen was. Every single thing Allah has blessed this ummah that it's preserved. Right? The ummah of the Sayyidina Isa, that religion was lost ages ago. We don't know about what his teachings were. It was lost. Right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in every single generation put people who will defend Islam on a political level, defend Islam on an intellectual level, defend Islam on a military level, defend this all, so that these things are still available, right? So Shama' al-Tirmidhi, for example, a book that we can look at, Google it, find it in English. Then you have to just find it as a PDF, right? Another book, any other books? Faza'il al-A'mal, right? Who's heard of Faza'il al-A'mal, Tabligh al-Jama'ah? Right? Faza'il al-A'mal, fantastic book, right? It's in English as well. Google it. Faza'il al-A'mal, F-A-Z-A-I-L, something, right? Google it, PDF. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? Right? All of these things available in English. Riyad al-Salihin, Gardens of the Righteous. Right? You can Google it. Gardens of the Righteous. English, PDF. It's there. Right? So there's countless hadiths. There's thousands of hadiths. But all of these things can just be of our basic, appreciation of what the Prophet ﷺ teach us. And what did these people do when they went to Egypt, when they went to these things? Like, what were they trying to do? They're trying to make it possible. Here is Islam on a plate. If you want it, you want it. And it's been given to us, alhamdulillah. Generations of people have kept this religion alive, and it was given to you on a plate. You didn't have to find out, for example, when you were 20 that you had to pray. You were told there's prayer, there's fasting, there's this, there's that. You can't do this, you can't do that. You give it onto you on a plate. And so we have to value these things, right? We have to take advantage of these things. So we've got the English translation of Quran on the Mondays that happens here. What else do we have? PDF, Riyad al-Salihin, the Gardens of the Righteous, Shama' al-Tirmidhi, what else? Provisions of the Seekers. Very nice book called Provisions of the Seekers. Zayd al-Talibin. So you're somebody seeking Jannah, you're seeking to get through this life in one piece. It's a very nice book, beautiful book, collection of the words of the Prophet. Right? It's not complex, very accessible. Right? What else? Sahih Bukhari is an academic work. So it's not such you can read it if you want. There's nothing hidden in Islam. We don't have like, oh no, you're not allowed to read that book. You can read whatever you want, right? You can read whatever you want. But it's like it's for academics. It's not. I don't know that book, but
why the distinguish between academics and not?
Academic is like, I don't know, like I want to know about, I want to know about keto diet, and I just want to Google it, like, it's a keto, like, and it comes up with a PhD thesis on keto.
I see. Okay.
Sahih Bukhari is a complex work. Right? So it's nice to read, but you have to read it.
Is it dangerous, like reading hadith by yourself?
It can be, but a lot of these books, like Riyad al-Salihin, what does it tell you? Chapter about being good to your parents. And like, subhanAllah, I never knew that hadith. This happens to me many times. So I never know the hadith. So I had to read the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. Never knew that hadith, subhanAllah. Maybe I've read it, but I just forgot it. Right? And so it's amazing, beautiful things, right? Beautiful hadith that you read. Right? So it can be dangerous, but if you read books like that, like Zayd al-Talibin, there's nothing to do with halal, haram, and there's nothing like that. So these are what else can we do? And then studying a basic book of fiqh, right? And so we mentioned this time and time again. Maulana Mufti Ruhullah, right? He's starting a book in fiqh. Very, very important. What is halal and haram? I have no idea, right? Abdullah and I were talking in the car. It's like sometimes we just don't even know. Like, it's not that I'm doing something haram. I just didn't even know. It's like, well, okay, well, you didn't know because you lived you were like captured from a Muslim country and brought to America by yourself, like the slaves. You say, no, I was in the mosque and there was people saying there's lessons, but I didn't go to lessons. It's like, well, that's slightly different, right? I didn't know pork was haram because I was stolen as a child from a Muslim country and brought up in Korea. I was like, okay, that's fine. But like, you're brought up in a Muslim country, you're brought up in a Muslim family, and then, alhamdulillah, your parents brought you up properly, so you went to the mosque and there's a lesson, and someone said there's a lesson. It's like, yeah, I didn't know. It's like, well, whose fault is that, right? Like, whose fault is that? And so we have to take, people, we think everything. This is what all these Muslim countries thought. Palestine, Muslim Spain. They said Muslim Spain's like, do you want ulama better than Muslim Spain? You want more power than Muslim Spain? You want more power than the Ottomans? It's like, well, where is it now? It's gone. So when you take things for granted, it goes, right? Man lam yashkur li ni'matin yata'arrad li zawaliha. Whoever doesn't appreciate a blessing becomes vulnerable to lose it. So one of these days, like, obviously, I can just ask Mufti Ruhullah. Yeah, but then tomorrow he's not there anymore. It's like, well, who are you going to ask then? Right? So taking up opportunities, right? Everyone knows the hadith. Who knows the hadith about seizing opportunities? Who knows the hadith?
5 before 5.
Yeah, take opportunity. Take the opportunity to use 5 things before 5 things. Right? Roughly speaking, no, the order of the hadith.
Advantages before all day.
Right? So you guys are all young, right? Tomorrow, right now, one of the brothers talking to one of the brothers. Yeah, honestly, he can't be here. He's like, sorry, God, I can't be here. I have priorities. We've got family. So everybody here who doesn't have kids, you've got all the time in the world. You know what it's like, right? You have no idea. No idea. You got all that. You're like, oh, dude, I'm so much time, right? Right? How many? It's like you got to, and then when you have kids, you got this. So we always think we don't have enough time. You've got tons of time. You got tons of time. So take your youth before your old age. What else?
Time before you get up.
You're free right now. You got a minute? Yeah. Right. How many of us, if I told you right now that is 8:15, right? If I told you right now it's 8:15, if you go, oh my God, you wouldn't be like, you're just like, oh, okay. Well, it's not 8:15. It's not even 8 o'clock.
Oh.
Right. So that means that you didn't even care about 15 minutes. That 15-minute difference did not change your life. Right. For so many of us, that 5 minutes, if I said 5 minutes, if you realize your clock was 5 minutes, you wouldn't care. So that means, okay, well, how many pages of the Quran can you do in 5 minutes? Right, someone who's fast, I can do like 2.5 pages in 5 minutes. Okay, what if I'm slow? 1 page. Okay, I can't even read the Quran. You can hold the Quran for 5 minutes, right? One of my teachers, he said that one of his teachers told him, said, if you get to the end of the day and you had no time to do Quran, sorry, like I'm just too many things. Just pick the Quran up and look at it. Right? Just pick the Quran up, open the page, just look at it. I can't even read it, just look at it. Right? That's ibadah. It's ibadah to look at those letters. Right? It's ibadah. That connection. Right? I can't remember who it was. I think it was Nawfal. He was one of the before Islam. He had realized that this whole thing about worshipping idols was loads of nonsense. So he used to lean against the Kaaba and say, oh Allah, if I knew a better way of worshipping you, I would. I just don't know how to worship you. Like, I don't know. I know that this is a whole load of nonsense. And these mushrikeen, they made up a whole load of weird rules, but I don't know what you want me to do. There's no messenger. Like the Prophet it could have been alive then, but he wasn't a prophet yet. And so he's leaning against the Kaaba saying, oh Allah, if I knew how to worship you in any other way better than this, I'd do it. But I don't know what to do. Right? And so we know what to do, but we don't do it. Right? We know what to do, we don't do it. So basically, can anyone just pick up the Quran? So I should not have a Quran in my house. I go, yeah, Rab. You have a Quran in your house, right? You know, some people that remember, who is it? The Sheikh anyway. He was reciting Surah Yasin in front of his house. So someone walks past and like, oh, who died? Like, nobody. Just reading the Quran. Say, oh, okay. Like they found it odd. Like, why are you reciting? Who usually recite Surah Yasin when someone dies. So what is that the only time you recite Surah Yasin? You don't do it any other time. Yeah, when somebody dies, you do Surah Yasin. That's true, but that's not the only time you recite Quran when someone dies, right? And so there's so many opportunities. So you have 5 minutes, or you could spare 5 in my schedule since the age of 12, I'm the worst time late for the bus, always late for assignments, always late for work, every single time, just like the worst person with time ever, right? So I live like a 36-hour day, and somehow try and put it in 24, and then everything's always all over the place. So then you ask your friend, okay, you got 36 hours of things to do in 24 hours. Would it ruin your life if you sat down for 5 minutes in the Quran? Not really. It's not going to change. If you spent 1 minute Googling hadith about eating, Google hadith about eating. Like, it doesn't take that much time, right? So the shaitan comes to us and says, yeah, but why don't you look at something else, about hadith about something else, and then hadith about something else, and then you get a phone call and you didn't do anything, right? So the shaitan tricked you. He's like, well, just do something small. This is what the Sahaba fought and died for us, so that these things would be available to us. And here they are, but we don't use them, right? So what else? The hadith. So 5 things. So free youth before old age, being free, having time before one is busied, right? And so when is one really busied? What does it really mean to be busied? When you say I don't have time, it means Allah prefers that I should be doing something else at this time. So Asad, right? He's like, bro, can I ask you a question? I'm like, I'm really, really sorry. I need to go. What does that really mean? If I'm worshipping Allah properly, it means I'm saying, Asad, your question is not given the same priority as the other thing Allah is asking you to do at this time. That's the real answer. When you say I don't have time, that means this other thing is more important, right? I'm speaking to Ratib, and he's like, free just 1 second, because his son has walked out and he's not sure are there cars out there. That's a priority, life or death, versus Freed's question about something else, right? And so what it means is that when you don't have time for something, it means Allah is giving priority to something else. Well, I call up Abdullah and he's like, I'm sorry, he doesn't answer my phone. I'm like, well, I don't know why he answers my phone. How can he not have time to answer his phone? Because he's working, that's a priority. He's fulfilling an obligation right now. So that's wajib, and this is sunnah. So that's more important, right? That's really, you don't have time. Right? Does that make sense, everybody? Or you have 2 wajib, this is important, that's important, but this is more important, right? You're praying, and your baby, it sounds like they're choking, right? And it's like, oh, it's okay, yalla, just go to sujood, make dua. No, you go and check what the baby's happening, right? There's no one else in the house, it's just you and the baby. Go and find out what's going on, because that's life or death versus prayer, right? So that's wajib, that's wajib. It's haram to break your prayer. You can't break your prayer. Yeah, but that's life or death, right? And so Allah's saying that's very important, that's wajib, but this is awjab, this is more important, right? And so in reality, when we say I don't have time to the Quran, what does it mean? It means I was, for example, in a war zone, right? I was curing dead people about to die. That's what I did. Or I was sleeping my bare minimum, just 4 hours a night, and I had to get every single second of sleep. Fine, this and that. But like, you don't have time for 1 minute of the Quran. You don't have time to pick up the Quran. Just pick it up. It's like, come on, right? You're being cheap to yourself. You're cheap to yourself, right? And so what else we said? You're not enough time. What else we say? Your health, right? Your health before your sickness, right? Your health before your sickness. What else? Your wealth before your poverty. You have an opportunity to do something, but you don't do it, right? And so all of us, is a very important thing to understand, all of us are stinking rich. The fact that we have flowing water in our house, the fact you have electricity, these are luxuries that are like, subhanAllah, nobody had these things before. Nobody had these things before. These are all very, very, very new. The luxury of a hospital, the luxury that when you have a baby that's born, you're not like, oh yeah, it's going to die. That was just like normal. Babies just died every year. It's normal, right? The Prophet ﷺ was a grandfather called Shayba. They called him Shayba, which means grey hair. Is that we hope he lives and he'll have grey hair. Umar, inshallah, he'll live. Umar means living. Aisha, the one that survived. They used to name their babies these names because it was just normal that babies die. That's a luxury that we have today. That's, subhanAllah, anesthetic. Subhanallah, anesthetic. Like, I've took two wisdom teeth out, but man, it's like I could die of having just wisdom teeth. Very easy. It doesn't come out the right way, it gets infected, you die. It's very easy. Penicillin. So we have so many things to do with the way we live today. It's just so easy, so unbelievably easy, right? We live in the pandemic, and yet there's that stimulus packages and there's this and there's that. Like, you can't die of poverty here. You can't die of poverty. It's like, well, most people in the world can die of poverty, but not us, right? So alhamdulillah, like, we always have to understand, when you think about poverty, it's like, well, none of us are poor. None of us are poor. It's just how ridiculously wealthy you are. Are you ridiculously wealthy or ridiculously wealthy? That's all, right? That's how we have to understand things. So alhamdulillah, we have tons of money, tons of opportunities, and so many people in the world do not and have not in the past had these opportunities. Okay, what else then? There was a fifth one.
Life before death.
And your life before your death, right? So, you know, I say this to myself, and may Allah forgive me. You know, these are the kind of the way that we have to think, is what was given to us on a plate, right? And you go, who is it? Who was talking about the Chinese Muslims? You guys? No,
Turkish Mongols or
no, I'm trying to think who was talking about these Chinese Muslims.
the Uyghurs?
It has
No.
to be Farhan, there's no way.
No. We were talking, someone was in Pakistan, and there was these Chinese Muslims, Munir, and he's like, subhanallah, they apply the religion like every single thing, every single sunnah, every single thing. Why do they do that? It's because they value it. It's because when they go back to their country, we don't have the right to do these things, right? We don't have these rights. So you take it, you just like, whatever, big deal. Subhanallah, someone said Allahu Akbar. You know, you value these things, right? And so this is what we have to value what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, what our forefathers have given to us, and understand what these things are, right? As I was telling, I was like, every single lesson I'll talk about polygamy, right? And my wife's there like, yeah, we'll talk about it when you get home. Right? Well, like a classic example, you say, what did the Sahaba fight to do? Is like to establish Sharia. Okay, so now the Sharia, now you're in this country, you're allowed to have 4 wives. Yeah, but now we don't do that, right? And I don't want to offend anybody, but like, you know, we have Afghans here. Who's Pashtun here, right? Half, right? Right? So the Pashtun, they have their own laws, right? Their own tribal laws and all these kind of things, right?
They do.
And so which is more important, Pashtun tribal law or Sharia?
Oh. Depends who you're asking.
Right? And so this is like when it's like, okay, what were you fighting for? Right? It's like,
That's why you have to conquer Afghanistan over and over.
yeah, right? So it's like, yeah, but it's like, so what were you fighting for? Right? And it's like, okay, what was the point then? Like, this is all Sharia, Islam is like, well, you don't even apply it. When you have the ability, you don't even apply it. So what's the point? You know, for myself, I'm a student, right? Student of, like, my thing is, okay, say Freed, okay, mashallah, the Mahdi's here, mashallah. And so the Mahdi's busy. He's like, Freed, can you just work out this halal, haram? I'm like, yeah, dude, I didn't know. He's like, well, what have you been doing for the last 20 years then? Right? He's like, here we are, and it's like, Sayyidina Isa is leading the prayer. And so when he comes, what madhab is he going to? He's obviously going to be Shafi'i, right? So he's going to turn around and say, Freed, was that valid? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, dude, get that out of here. So what have you been doing for the last 20 years? Right? I kind of ask you about what the Prophet ﷺ, my brother, Sayyidina Isa say, my brother Muhammad ﷺ, he came and taught you the deen. You've been studying the deen. Can you please tell me what the answer is? I'm like, I don't know. Right? I don't know. So he's like, what was the point then? And then he comes here and said, well, okay, you know. So what I'm trying to say is everybody, you know, people like myself, there's more responsibility on my shoulders than anybody else. There's more responsibility because, like, okay, dude, you know Arabic, you know fiqh, you better learn it, you better study it, you better do these things. But again, it's like, hey, share some of the responsibility, guys. Carry some of the load. Like, let's get on with it. Let's do something because this was given to you. Anyway, then it's going to be like, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm Muslim. What does that mean? People died for you to be a Muslim. They died in order for you to have access to Quran and Hadith and apply these things. And yet we don't really, it's like, whatever. It's like just one of the many things in our life that's kind of funny. But it's extremely important. Okay? So apologize if my talk today didn't make much sense. British people, we never open our mouths and say like, alhamdulillah. So any questions or queries? So just to understand how does jihad work, right? So let's just historically, right? I'm not talking about now. Historically, Sayyidina Umar and the Sahaba, what did they do? They told, for example, the people in Palestine, Okay, you guys are all Christians and Jews. Do you want to become Muslim? And you can just like rule yourselves? They're like, no. Okay. Do you want to just agree that, for example, you don't fight us and we fight for you, but you just have to pay a fee, a monthly, a yearly fee. Every male has to pay a certain amount. We'll defend you, right? You don't have to fight, but we'll defend you. You just guys don't understand that you're not going to fight us. Is that cool? No. Okay, fine. Then choice number 3 is with war. That was it. That's what they used to do. So they weren't like the Mongols. The Mongols like came through like, no, we're just going to kill everybody. It's not like, oh, do you want to, it's not like that. They said, do you want to rule your own country as Muslims? Oh yeah, fine. So they weren't trying to take anybody's wealth, take anybody's anything. It's like, do you want to? It's like, yeah, become Muslim. Fine. Okay, well, stay as you are, but just don't fight us, and we'll protect you. That's simple. That's it. And so again, Afghanistan, majority Zoroastrian, and the religion wasn't forced down their throat. They were there. Islam was the power. They just had to sit down, listen, and be fine. Okay, you do your own thing, but this is what's true. And then bit by bit, people just become Muslim, right? Da'wah, various different things like that, right? But they were majority non-Muslim countries, right? But what was it that they fought? So that it's there and it's apparent. There's an adhan. Yeah, there's a this, there's that. The Quran is available to you. All these things are available, and you can become Muslim. Right? So, any questions or queries? You had a question? You sent me a question earlier.
Oh, no, okay. I was reading a story. What you're talking about there was a Sahabi, Amr bin As.
Yeah.
There was another Sahabi. He mentioned that there was time. He said that when we had nothing to eat, it was so cold, we would chew on leaves. And our mouth would get so dry and we had nothing to eat. It was so cold. He said, now each one of us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after we had conquered these lands, Allah ta'ala has given us, made us governors. And,
you just eat whatever.
Yeah, it's like whatever you want.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, everything is so. We also it's like everything. Ummah always goes through up and down, up and down. Difficulty ease, difficulty ease, difficulty ease. We have to understand what easy things gave up, but they didn't. Always trying to get available for us to have what we have today, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guaranteed. It's always going to be there. But the question is, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always have Muslims and will always have ulama, but will it be us or will it be somebody else? Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need us. He'll just bring somebody else to do it. Right? It will always be there. There will always be mujahideen, there would always be people defending these things. But the question is, it'd be like, we had the opportunity, but just like let it go. And it just didn't happen. Right? And many people, if you look at the Sahaba, many people, they become Muslim very late. Like Abu Hurairah, very late. Abu Sufyan, right at the end. He's an enemy of the Prophet ﷺ, and then right at the end, changes. Right? And many of the ulama, Quduri, right? I think he started studying when he was 35. 35.
Question here.
Yeah, go ahead.
What book do you recommend for the Sirah of the Prophet?
What's the age? The adults?
Yeah, 23. He's
23. So I think there's was it Rafiq? Yeah, the Sealed Nectar, right?
The what?
So who's the author? Al-Mubarak Puri.
The seal of.
I'll
Can't hear you.
The Sealed Nectar.
Isn't that Yasser Qadi's teacher? Puri?
No, Mubarak Puri.
Yeah.
No, he's like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, something. Mubarak Puri.
He mentioned him on the lecture.
Al-Mubarak Puri.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you know,
So what does Sheikh mean though?
Okay.
Before you call me Sheikh, what does it mean?
I learned it. I don't know. In actual definition,
Mr.
or
Okay.
just out of my own words.
So you have a student and you have an alim, right? You call them alim, you call him Maulana, you call him Sheikh, you call him Mufti, you call him whatever, right? So I'm not a Mufti, I'm not an alim, I'm not a Sheikh, I'm not a Maulana. So you can call me whatever you want. I'm just not picking on you, but just that everybody understands. But I'm not either of them, right? So one of my teachers who was genuinely a Sheikh, he always used to call me Sheikh Farid, wake up because I fall asleep in his lesson. He'd be like, Sheikh Farid, right? And so generally speaking, so these words are just nice. It's out of respect. It's great, but it's
What about Hazrat? What is that?
it's all the same.
Respect.
Hazrat,
I respect that.
whatever.
The what?
It's like you're either an authority,
Would it be like
like
saying
you're either an authority or you're not. It's like, Farid, can you give me a fatwa? I say, no, I can ask my teacher. So forget it then. You're not an authority, right?
Okay, here.
What is hater?
What is what?
Hater.
Hater.
Oh, that Farhan can explain that.
Right. But anyway, so all of these words, they don't mean much, right? And so if I was an alim, I'd tell you. Like someone like, for example, Sheikh Saleh. He's like, guys, you're nobody, and I am somebody. And in fact, he doesn't even tell us who he is. He has a title in there. Some people might have met, which is like super big, but he doesn't use it here.
Which is what?
He's Murabit.
Oh,
Murabit. He's like on the super level of ulama, right?
oh.
But he doesn't use. They just use Sheikh Saleh here.
Yeah, I think
Right.
the main thing we learn out of this is like our religion, it's mainly our languages, they have a lot of adab.
A lot of adab.
Respect for the elders. Yeah.
Respect
Yeah.
for the elders, and especially
And
for
whether
a
it's
teacher,
yeah.
somebody that's your teacher, like you just never call him by his name. You call
It's
him
true.
by the
It's
thing
true.
that's
But
learned.
anyway, basically, I'm just saying, what does it mean? So, who am I? I'm a talib, student. Now, I'm a student of sacred knowledge. Inshallah, I'll finish my studies one day. But I'm a student, right? And unfortunately, there's many people who they I don't know, they assume these titles, and then they if they don't have that in their mind, it's problematic. Like they honestly think they know stuff. It's like it's problematic, right? And so it's fine. You can use these titles, come with Sheikh, Maulana, Hazrat. My what's it called? My name, what's the word? I'm named after Baba Farid, right? And so my dad, he spent a lot of time in Pakistan, in Pakistan. He has the kiswat from the top of his maqam. So we had it at my house. So you come to my house and it says Sheikh Farid, Pak Farid, and they're like, MashaAllah, the guy really loves his son, you know. It's from Baba Farid, right? Hazrat Farid.
Your dad spent time in Pakistan?
Yeah, he just became Muslim there like 15 years.
15 years?
Or more than that. I don't know. He became Muslim in Pakistan.
Oh, yeah. There was a one of
What's-
theirs. Go ahead.
Somebody have a question?
Oh, the one I forgot to answer it.
Oh, go ahead.
You got the explanation of Sheikh.
Yeah, I was just gonna see Mr. Talib.
It's Talib, yeah. Now I'm a Talib. Now I'm talking about jihad and now Talib. Yeah, I'm
I know I was gonna ask.
Mr. Talib.
You know, we all have a way of thinking. For example, a set.
yeah. Me and you, bro, we have a weird way of thinking.
we
Yeah,
have
I
a
know.
set default way of thinking,
Yeah.
and we have just been raised to that point and have that understanding. How do you, when you come across a situation or when you're trying to change, how do you keep that clear? How do you keep that in a even balanced way so you're actually being open-minded and not just thinking, these guys are like that, or nah, I don't want to do this, or I want to live my life like this. How do you come, for example, to this gathering or wherever you're listening about?
So I don't know. It's a difficult question. But I'm saying is someone who has someone who genuinely wants to just, oh Allah, please be content with me, it will work out. So I have a certain way of thinking like this. There's so many things, that we have in our mind just because we grew up here. Like you grew up in the West, like you just think in a certain way. And then when you bump into Islam, weird, to do. It's like it just sounds odd. So the thing is, yeah, that will happen. But as long as you're sincere and you genuinely want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will make sense. Because the ultimate feeling is, oh Allah, whatever you want. Like, whatever, I don't care about the details. Whatever you want is what I want, right? What is it? Yeah. So so as long as that's the case, then there's that pure intention that whatever Allah wants, and that's there the whole time, and that's the drive. It's okay. The other thing is just basically just growing up. Like look at the world, like the other day, I was teaching some kids. I was teaching them about what was it like? It was a poem about war, and they're like, "Oh, why didn't it just come to an agreement?" It's like, well, hello. Like, since when has that happened in the world? Like people just get to an agreement. It's like just grow up, It's like you're just a little kid and you don't know, So just growing up helps. So just going back to Mubarak Puri. So Mubarak Puri, I think there's two Mubarak Puris, because there's one that died in 2006, so he could easily be a teacher of. So he has. There's another Mubarak Puri which is Tuhfat al-Ahwadi. Tuhfat al-Ahwadi.
Why you check that out?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Talib. going back to what Abdullah said, how to balance both. I think when we were growing up, and Abdullah and Saad can remember, would have this halaqah every Fridays, right, guys? Abdullah and Saad, we'd have the halaqah with Abdul Rahman on Fridays, and that was like, for us, that was like probably, I would look forward to that. I think me and my younger brother were talking about this. That was our fun time, pretty much. It's to come to the masjid and play basketball, listen to a talk, and listen to and just hang out with the brothers that were around our ages. And I think when you're getting into deen, or you have the intentions, but also like when you have the intentions, like, I want to try to make myself better, or make dua, ya Allah, guide me. At the same time, you have to make an effort on yourself to go into some gatherings, some majlises, number one, and then also that when I was at a younger age, and I used to see people that were like in like Tabligh Jamaat, and I'd be like, man, these guys, why are they like, you know what I mean? And then me and Abdullah, mashallah, we did our 40 days. And what I'm trying to get to that at the end, it was just like something very simple. It wasn't anything like different than what I was doing. We still had time to play some basketball or play video games, and then play with him, at home. And it's nothing's really changed. And I think we could all agree the max we actually do is just the fara'id.
Exactly,
We don't do anything different.
So that's the thing is when you turn to Allah, you get the deen and the dunya. When you turn to Allah, you get the deen and the dunya. Right? Yesterday, I don't know. Sometimes I talk to so many people, I don't even know who was talking about this. One of you guys, I think, was talking about Abdullah Mubarak. Who is it? Right? The dunya, right? You talk about. SubhanAllah, my head's like mashed. Like me and Abdullah, we did sniffed too much glue when we were little, so it's like, I'm joking. But before puberty, right? It's not haram. No, it's like I couldn't remember, but you haven't. So the sweetness. So that's how it works. Is like you get both. You get both. You get the deen. When you turn to Allah, you get the deen and the dunya. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful to you, if you turn away from Him, He'll take the deen and the dunya away from you. You're like, oh my God, please help me, and then He gives you then you turn to Him and He gives you both, right? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't merciful towards you, which He has a right to do, He can do what He wants, He just gives you more dunya. And everything just seems to work out, and you really have to wake up because it's scary, right? Because things just seem to work out. So I'm doing the haram, but it's great. Like, I know I'm being cruel to these people, haram, doing these things, but I seem to be getting away with it, so it must be okay. It's like, no. You heard what the Quran said, and you heard what the Prophet said, that's haram. But it just doesn't seem, I don't seem to see any punishment, right? So it's a great blessing for people like, people who are really tested, something really hard happens, and say, that's the time to change. Like, Allah's really pushing you, right? But if you turn to Allah, that's what my experience, since turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything always works out. There is no problems. Everything always works out. You don't have big problems in your life. Why? It's because the problems are there, but it always makes sense because you're with Allah, right? The person has cancer, the person has whatever, you lose your parent, you lose whatever it is. But like, I don't remember it as traumatic. Like, I remember I have nightmares of things happening before that. Street light colors, something kind of things, because it was a stressful time. Like a stressful time, right? Whereas, like, because it's like, you actually continue under stress because you're working against Allah all the time. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's like this continual thing. And it's like just pushing it, pushing. It's like, what is it? People who, you murder somebody and they put them under the floorboards and they hear the heart beating. It's like, dude, the person's continual stress because you did something really bad and it's never resolved. Whereas you turn to Allah, it's like, it's all resolved now. Alhamdulillah, it's just chill, right? And so, but the first point the Ratib made is, number one, is you have bad sohbah. It's impossible to change if you're in the same people. Like people who smoke, right? They smoke and say, oh, I'm gonna give up smoking. It's like, okay, well, you go to the bar and everyone smokes. You're at work and everyone goes for a cigarette break. It's like, how on earth are you gonna give up smoking? It's impossible. You have to change the environment. Like, it's impossible. People start smoking because they're around. It's like, yeah, I never really cared about it, but I was around these people, so then, just start smoking. It's like, that's how it happens. So it's like, how do you get out of a scenario? Like, how do I pray 5 times a day? This is what personally I did. Like, I wanted to pray tahajjud. I'm the laziest person in the world. Laziest person. It was so difficult to get me out of bed, right? So I wanted to pray tahajjud. So what did I do? I went to Jordan. My friend, I said, please wake me up for tahajjud. He moved out. I said, I'm going to find somebody else. Go and live with him. Bring her to Tahajjud, right? My wife. Okay, how do I choose my wife? I said, somebody was offered to me. She said, did you pray Tahajjud? No. Okay, my wife. Okay, I'll marry her. She prays Tahajjud. Thank you very much. Very easy. So I can guarantee me Allah, I prayed Tahajjud. Thank you very much. Did I do anything? No. Everyone else woke me up the whole life. Right? So basically, you're talking about somebody who sucks at being religious. But what you do, you just suck from everybody else. That's exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to do. He said, yeah, taqullah, fear Allah, you don't have the strength to do it by yourself. I know. But be with the people who are true. Don't hang out with Ratib, but hang out with people who are the true way.
Also true.
Right? But that's that's what you all know the story of Sayyidina Ali when we went to Iraq. We mentioned this many times. So Sayyidina Ali, he moves the government from Medina to Kufa in Iraq, and he tells the people, he says, we know the worst of you and we know the best of you. So how do you know that? How do you know what we're like? You haven't even met us yet. Because all of our bad people are hanging out with you bad people, and all of our good people are hanging out with your good people. So as soon as we see that so-and-so goes and hangs out with Sat, and so-and-so goes and hangs with so-and-so, we know that Sat's no good and so-and-so is no good immediately. Because we know this guy and we know that guy, right? And so we have to do that. You have to be pick very carefully, right? So if you have a girlfriend, make sure she prays Tahajjud, right? It's a joke, right? Supposed to laugh at some point.
I got a text.
Text it, yeah. Why didn't you wake me up
Are
this
you
morning?
praying Tahajjud?
Right. So the point is, you have to choose who you hang out with. So answering the question, so there is Safiullah al-Mubarak Puri and Abdurrahman al-Mubarak Puri. Okay, so they're two different people. The author of Rahiq al-Makhtoom died in like 2000 something. So he's possibly the teacher of Sheikh Yasir Qadi. And then there's the author of Tuhfat al-Ahthi, which is a famous commentary on Tirmidhi, which is also Mubarak Puri. So obviously it was a very Mubarak place. Right? Puri is city. Okay, any other questions or queries?
Going back to Abdullah's question that he asked earlier, he was mentioning that we have a certain type of thinking, and how do we keep that in balance? Would you say in reply to that question that I can have a certain type of thinking, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has given us two lenses.
It's true, but the thing is, what you'll find, and they pray in the mosque and do all these things, 25, 30 years, but they don't even know what's in the Quran and Sunnah.
That's true.
They have no idea. I've seen that with in Jordan. So students of Sheikh Nuh in Jordan, and I'm sitting there having lunch with you, and like, hello? Like this guy's in the front row. I'm behind him. I'm like the guy who turned up late, and he's in the front row. I'm like, did you just say that? It's like the guy has no idea like what the deen even says. That's what we say. Seerah is in English. Read the Seerah, right? The Seerah will just tell you these things. Like my friend Zakaria, remember Zakaria? Right? He used to be Catholic. He's like, yeah, Catholics don't read the Bible. They have no idea what's in the Bible. Just go to church, get Christian, do all these things. They have no idea what's in the Bible. They don't connect with the Bible. They don't know what it is. Same with us. Like, we have no idea what's in the Quran. No idea what's in the Seerah. What did the Prophet even do? Right? No idea. Right? And so it's like we don't even have an Islamic identity because we're Muslims. But that means pray 5 times is great, but otherwise, basic things are not there.
That's why we
That's
started
the
that
ultimate.
Quran.
Exactly.
That's the ultimate goal, though, right? That's what we're trying to achieve. Right?
Yeah. And so, but
So
it can be achieved quite easily. It can be achieved quite easily.
But
3
you gotta
books.
go baby steps with that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so
Way baby steps. Even the way you're questioning, that's like a little bit intermediate to advanced
Yeah.
for a person to think that way.
Yeah.
But we're talking
It
about,
takes a lot of time.
of course, we're
Yeah.
talking about just to
It could take your lifetime.
not just the but adults or youth or what have you, because the common wrong understanding, and I see it with a lot of people, and you see with the way they behave, is that they hear a hadith, they hear one Sahaba, they read a story of how the Sahaba, they hear one Sahaba did this one, they're like, all right, that's exactly what I'm going
it's
to
true.
implement. Then they hear another thing, that's what I'm going to implement. And when they start mixing it up, or they
Yeah.
can't implement something,
So
any
it
longer, they
takes
think
time
that,
to have a
oh,
proper holistic idea of hey,
Correct.
what's right.
That's why going back to what I said is that once you just at the end of it you start canceling everything out, you're left with just the faraid that you're actually doing.
Yeah.
And then when you take that in consideration and the balance that he's talking about, you really didn't miss anything that you're doing in the past.
Yeah.
Except the faraid that you've gained,
Yeah.
right? So
But it's a general thing though, be around good people and learn. Like the more you can learn, the more you learn, the more you can understand what's going on. Inshallah. Mubarak Puri. Okay, any other questions? Go ahead.
So, do you think that there could be a new caliphate maybe in our lifetime? Or
So the issue is the talk about whenever we say the word Islamic State or Caliphate, it's like like a loaded word. You know, what is a Muslim country? It's very simple. You get a Muslim, you give him an army, you say, do you control this area? Okay, that's a Muslim state. That's what you're talking about. So if you go to Pakistan, so Pakistan is a Muslim country. Okay, but they do. So in every single Muslim country, since there's right things and wrong things, they do right things, they do wrong things. And so every single country that's ruled by a Muslim, he has police and he's control of that geographical area. That is an Islamic state. We call it Islamic State, ISIS and all that. So it's like that is an Islamic state. And so so yes, so we have to just work with these Muslim countries and try and improve them. Like, guys, there's this haram and this haram and this haram. We should change, right? And some are better than others, and some are trying and some are not trying. And some have power to change, some don't have power to change. But so the thing, it already exists. That's the thing. Is like, everything is there already. It's like, do you think there can be scholars like this? They're already there. Everything's already here. It's just we're not doing anything. It's just we are stuck to the ground. We have low himmah, extremely low himmah. We don't do anything. And I'm talking to myself, like, everything's there. Everything's there. Like people like, I wish it was like back in the days where go and study hadith. Like, all the hadiths are there. Everything is available. It's just like nothing's happening. So could we have like a new Islamic Renaissance? Could you have like a new? It's all very possible. It's like, go to the Muslim country, see what's happening, and then forget what they're doing. Look at what you're doing. It's like, well, yeah, that's because, I'm not doing my job. I'm not doing the basic things. So how can I expect anybody else to do something? Right? Or was it with Sayyidina Ali? He said, they said, why is it that they? Someone asked him, why is it that they questioned whether or not you were a valid Khalifa, but they never questioned, for example, those before you? He says that's because they had followers like me, and I have followers like you. Right? So it's like, could there ever be they say, yeah, if let's say, for example, if we were doing our job, the king of Saudi Arabia wouldn't be doing what he's doing. It's like, because those guys back then, they had people saying, hey, everybody pointing the finger, he does something haram, everybody points a finger. Now nobody says anything. So don't blame him, blame us. Like, we're not,
Because the question should be Sharia more than anything.
Yeah, so do they apply? But do they apply? There's many countries they try and apply, and many countries, do they have a choice? Right. So like some of these countries, it's like, yeah, you're going to be immediately they're surviving on funds from this and funds from that. It's like immediately, as soon as if you don't play ball, you're gone. Right. It's going to be immediate, like civil war. So the country's like, do you want civil war or do you want weird Islam applied? You have a choice, right? So what's more important? Bloodshed or some kind of half and half Islam being applied, right? So you say something like the president of Turkey, can he just like, hey, Sharia? Like, the people don't want Sharia, so he's going to work bit by bit, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. That's where I'm going, but like the country doesn't want it. They hate Islam, and there's people who love it, right? And so we have to have husn al-dhan, to whatever extent, have a good opinion to what extent we can have of Muslim rulers, right? And to see what we can do, inshallah. Khair. Okay, we'll stop here, inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.